Welcome to this legal video exploring the case of Sillano versus JGC Philippines Inc., a significant Supreme Court ruling from 2025 regarding employee intellectual property rights, lockouts, and the validity of preventative suspensions. This video examines the factual background behind the case, focusing on a complex software development dispute, an underlying intellectual property conflict, and the subsequent commercial lockout incident. The dispute began when senior engineer Santiago Sillano created engineering software while employed at JGC. An ownership dispute arose in 2004, leading to a software lockout. In response, JGC placed Sillano on a 30-day preventative suspension before terminating him for disobedience. Following the January 2004 lockout, JGC implemented a 30-day preventative suspension. By February 16, 2004, the company moved to terminate the employee and filed an intellectual property suit. Finally, in February 2025, the Supreme Court affirmed the validity of the preventative suspension. This case involved dual legal forums. The Intellectual Property Office ruled that the copyright belonged to the author, while labor courts determined that the dismissal itself was illegal. However, the courts unanimously upheld the legitimacy of the 30-day preventive suspension. The Supreme Court's ruling focused on the necessity of precautionary measures and conducted a contemporaneous assessment of the threats posed to the company's operations. Under the omnibus rules, an employer may enforce a 30-day preventative suspension if an employee's presence poses a serious threat. The court found that JGC acted within these statutory limits when handling the suspension period. The standard for assessing a preventative suspension is based on circumstances existing at the time of the action. Since the IPO had not yet ruled on copyright, the company's assessment of an immediate threat to operations was deemed valid. The Supreme Court issued a bifurcated ruling. While the termination was found to be illegal, the preventative suspension was deemed valid, and therefore, no back pay was owed for that specific 30-day period. Key legal principles established here include the precautionary nature of suspension, the reliance on a contemporaneous standard for assessing risk, and the critical distinction between intellectual property ownership and operational security. The court's majority argued that the employer acted in good faith to protect operations. In contrast, the dissent emphasized that since the company did not legally own the software, no threat to, quote, property could be claimed to justify the suspension. Thank you for joining this video lecture on the labor and intellectual property jurisprudence found in the case of Sillano versus JGC Philippines. This video utilized images provided by Atarian and Slide Stocks. Please refer to these sources for further visual context.